my friend and I were stalked for years and nearly kidnapped. First part of this story got deleted, so I'm going to shorten it. Basically, a summer camp me and my friends started to attend in 2019 does surveys every summer based on the topic we'll be discussing, so we get better public speaking and a more generalized opinion from others in the area. Me and my friend teamed up with 2 counselors and hit the town. Our last stop was a Walmart, and we talked to a bunch of different people. The most memorable was the second to last, an older man that asked for our names and all about us after he finished answering our questions. At the time, we were both 13 with hardly any concept of stranger danger, so we gladly answered about ourselves. Anyway, a few days later an account popped up on our friend requests called Ed Patsis. The account liked a bunch of old posts, commented a buccino of fire and rose emojis, and called us hot and sexy on our posts. It got to the point where they started to send pics. So me and my friend ended up blocking the account. Only a few days later, the account was permanently deleted. It didn't show up in our searches for it. That's why we thought it was the end of it. It was not. When we finally got back to school in August, we basically forgot the event altogether. Yet, again, this time on both of our Facebook accounts, we got a notice from someone named Ed Patsis wanting to be our friend. Immediately blocked that account again, but not before they had already commented lewd things on my baby pictures, commented on how pretty my baby blonde hair was, how I looked good in short dresses, etc. After that, we both talked to our parents about the situation, and other than keeping our accounts private, there wasn't much else we could really do. The cops shrugged and said just to take the app down completely. But hey, we're teens. Of course we didn't do that. Over the years till around the end of 2021, this man kept sending friend requests from different accounts with similar variations of their names. Which was a bit stupid, but whatever. Though at the beginning of 2022, this is where it starts to get really creepy. Accounts with the names and pictures of our friends started showing up in our notifications, so obviously we added them thinking it was our friends. We were wrong. Almost immediately, most of our posts had likes or comments on them from this account, and there were multiple DMs of pics to both of us. We blocked the account again. This became a reoccurring cycle. An account with friends info, pictures, and mutual friends would get hacked, stolen, duplicated, etc., just so they could friend us again and again without us worrying too much about it. Finally, it got to the point we stopped adding people from our school at all, even friends. The final time this happened was in summer of 2022. The swarm of fake accounts had stopped roughly 2 months prior, and seeing as this friend request looked legit by a school friend, I decided to try it out. My friend didn't, she was still wary, but I decided to give it a shot. The compromise was to fully delete our socials and get new ones if this account turned out the same. I was definitely a stupid 17-year-old, but try not to judge me too harshly. But this account didn't spam our pictures, didn't DM us pics, just interacted with us like any normal school kid would. A like here and there on new posts, a like on a story posted, never commented on posts. So, finally, we thought it was over. Haha, wrong. Strange things started to happen and become more of an intentional thing than a coincidence. I would post a picture of me and a friend at the park. A couple minutes later, a white truck pulled up in the lot, eerily close to my car, driver's side door, but we tried not to think too much of it. There were still a few spaces over. Me and my friend were in the swings, basically straight line of sight of the parking lot. The truck lights remained on, pointed at us, for a long time. It got to the point that me and my friend finally started getting worried and anxious, so we hopped up from the swings and decided to take laps around the park instead. The car was far too close to mine for us to be comfortable chancing getting to it in time. Mind you, it was about 10 p.m. at night, so we were the only ones there. We waited and roamed the park for nearly an hour before the truck finally drove away. That's when we raced to my car, and I drove home, looking behind me frequently just in case. This happened in early June, and it kept happening. I didn't really notice it, thought it was a one-off occurrence. It never dawned in my head that it happened after I posted pictures or said where I was with friends. But I started to see a white truck just about anywhere I posted about, even one that would wait outside my high school when I posted a story about my walk to my mom's store only a mile from our school. Again, young and dumb, I didn't think the worst of it. I thought it was parent waiting for a kid. Plus, there is a bunch of people that own all kinds of variations of white trucks in my town, so I never put much worrying in to see them all the time. My friend never mentioned any white truck, and if we were together we rarely saw any of them. But I started to get nervous of them. After one time I was walking to my mom's store, I decided to take a glance at the driver of the truck that sat near the car line every day after school. It was the same, if not a bit older man from our Walmart survey trip of 2019. It was bizarre, definitely. We were never expecting to see him again, especially since we met him in a few towns over from our own. Yet lo and behold, he was right there. That's when I walked, probably ran actually, to my mom's store. This kept happening, and I finally knew I was being stalked after seeing him that first time, because I saw him everywhere on foot. Anyway, this post is getting long, so I'll fast forward to the last bit that happened on the last day of our shared summer camp, in late July 2023. At this point, I was still 17, and since I was older than most of the new campers, I might as well had been considered a staff member. I drove kids to camp and home every night, and they paid me for the gas money, so I was cool with doing it. Didn't bother me, since they were in the same town as me, and there was others farther away the counselors typically drove home. This day, I posted all the last day campfire pictures right before I left, so I could try and save my phone that was suffering from glitches, lack of data, and didn't let me communicate, call others, because my storage was too full. So I photo dumped a bunch of stuff, but it didn't fix the problem. My phone was essentially broken in all but name. It hardly worked, and I bought my current phone after this occurrence. On top of this, one of the older campers that visited on the last day didn't have a phone either, but he was also in the car with me. In the back seat, I had 3 campers. One didn't have a phone either, and the other 2 were dead. One was charging theirs with my carport, but we didn't think much of it. Just turned on the radio full blast and gunned it back home. As I pulled off the back road of our camp up to the intersection, the light turned green, and we went forwards. In the lane next to us was a white truck that kept turning its brights on and off. It was a bit weird, so I sped up, but I didn't think much of it. Side note, my best friend, let's call her Anne for this, has a baby. Anne had her kid at 16, so at this point, her kid was nearly a year old. Still very fussy in car rides and such. This becomes important later, because Anne was there for the last day of camp too. She left right before we did when her baby became cranky. Eventually, I don't see the white truck behind me anymore and I slow down a bit. It was nearly 9:30 p.m. at this point, late enough for the highway between our towns to be essentially empty. I have this back road that is a bit curvy that leads close to my house and directly to a rich neighborhood. It's the streets I typically take to get back to my house from camp if I had no one to take home, and everyone that was a regular in my car called it the detour. It was quite pretty, with a bunch of full evergreen trees and wildlife. The kids in the back were begging me to go on the detour since it was the last day of camp, so I caved in and hit on my blinker, turning right onto the back road. Now listen, I'm not the safest person out there, don't judge me. I'm still basically a kid too, but all the ones in the back love to hang out the windows on the back road, so I let them stick their heads out the sunroof, sit on the windowsill while holding the bars on top of my car. I went slow, under 10 miles per hour, just so they could do it and not worry about them getting hurt. I mean, there was no one on the back roads. Cops never camped out on these streets, and I was going under the speed limit by like 20, so there wasn't really any harm in letting them stick out the windows. Eventually, I let them bully me into taking them around the rich neighborhoods that had cool water fountains and covered bridges on their streets. Apparently, one of the covered bridges caved in, so we had to go around on this super narrow street, right next to a large drainage ditch at least 15 to 20 feet deep. As we are going around it, a car comes up behind us. I assumed it was one of the people who lived in the neighborhood, so I was going to speed up to let them get to their house. Finally, we came to the four-way of the rich people street. Straight forward was a dead end, which is what I originally was going to do. To the left was the broken covered bridge, and to the right was a back roundabout that would take us back to the beginning of the street. But, let's call him Jake, told me to go right. Mind you, one of the campers was sticking their body out of my skylight from the back seat so I couldn't see out of my review mirror. I didn't really want to, but I trusted his instincts and turned right. As soon as I did, I started to hear honking behind me. I was a bit startled, and so were the kids in the back seat. I glance out in my side view mirrors, but I can't see anything past bright LED lights. I thought it was just because I took too long, so I sped up a bit after I turned right. There was a hook at the end of a hill on this back street, and it makes you tug the steering wheel pretty hard to stay on the road, especially in the dark. The car behind me turned right too. They started flashing their LED brights, honking loudly, and had rolled down windows screaming at us. They kept trying to get in the lane next to us and bump into my car to run us off the road. That is when I knew this was serious. Instantly, I started screaming at the kids in the back seat to sit down, buckle up, and roll up their windows. They barely managed to do that by the time I hit the bend at the end of the hill really hard and gunned it off the street, driving around the drainage ditch with little problem. There was no phone in the car to call anyone, least of all the police, so I just ended up speeding down the back streets as the car chased me, trying to run me off the road multiple times. When we came upon sharp corners, They slowed down. That told me they didn't know the area well, which I used to my advantage. As I was approaching a stop sign, for me to go left or right, I yelled at Jake to check my right because I'm not stopping for the sign. I sped past it, the car tried to hit my bumper again, and I swerved into someone's yard. Grass was damaged the next day when I drove past it. I booked it down the street, hitting every turn as fast as possible, and eventually I thought I lost the truck. I sped past my high school and onto the highway again, where we got off in the first place. I didn't see the truck behind us and we were all still freaked out. I took a right to go onto another main way, and passed by a closed gas station on the way. I stopped at a gas station and handed the kids in the back some cash for them to go get themselves a drink and a snack to help them calm down. None of them were crying, thank God, the adrenaline junkies they are. They thought it was more exciting than anything. I told Jake to go watch them in the store and make sure they didn't do anything stupid while I filled up my gas tank. We waited at the gas station for about 20 minutes before I went back onto the road to take them home, just in case. I asked them if they had saw the car at all while they were hanging out the windows, and only one of them said they thought they did, but the truck's lights were off. It was the same truck from a town or so over, from the intersection in front of the back road to our camp. They followed us for nearly 25 minutes. After I dropped all of them off, I was still a bit shaky, and decided to try and see if my phone would call someone that I could talk to about what happened. The only contact that would load was Anne, since she was the last person I had talked to on our phones. With a stroke of luck, my phone actually let me call. She picked up, but all I could hear from her side of the line was her crying. Obviously panicking, I asked her what was wrong. And, lo and behold, she shares a story eerily similar to what just happened to me. Apparently, Anne's baby started crying so loud she could barely focus on the road. So she pulled into the closed gas station I mentioned earlier, right outside our high school I sped past. She was giving her kid their bottle when a white truck pulled into the lot. Immediately she was weary because it was closed, and she was right. Less than 30 seconds later, this truck parked horizontally in front of Anne's car to block her in. She immediately started the car again, locked her doors, and pulled off over the grass curb, blocking her from the street. She was not chancing her baby at all. Anne told me the only thing she remembered was the man that we had saw, years ago, in that Walmart. His eyes staring at her like she was just a piece of meat for him to have. As she raced home, the truck caught up to her. She turned on her back road, and the truck started to flash its lights, honk, run her off the road the entire time. But, a couple streets before hers, a little red car pulled out in front of her and started to brake check her as the white truck tried to hit her from behind. It was a mess. She took a chance, sped up, and swung onto her street to at least loose the red car. The truck booked it after her. Apparently, both of her older brothers were waiting outside for her with some of their friends to help her bring in stuff for her baby. Upon seeing this as she pulled into her driveway, the white truck sped off. If her brothers weren't outside, that would have been a different story. But anyway, long story short, the truck that follows me all the way back had an accomplice in a red car that followed my friend Anne. When they couldn't catch me, they went for her. Both me and Jake suspected that because I didn't go onto the dead end where the man could cut me off. That's probably why it suddenly got violent so quickly. Thank you for watching. If you haven't yet, subscribe and hit the notification bell to be notified on our latest video.